Hey, welcome. Today we're gonna talk about the patch that came out today, the patch 1.32.9 that brought up a lot of changes. Some of them I don't really like as an undead, but yeah, let's go straight to them and talk about it. So let's see. Got first the human, and a lot of those nodes are about addressing undead versus human. Or there's a saying, there's an opinion that Undead has like insane advantage over the human. And the first change is that the castle research gold cost reduced from 360 to 320. And developers know the goal here is to increase the I don't know, incentive of human to go to castle, as well as promote some one base options. Honestly, I think that's a good change for humans. I was talking a lot about that the tech from tier 2 to tier 3 for human is kind of expensive. It will speed them up a little and make the tier 3 option more available against other races. Because I feel like right now you see tier 3 human on one base probably only against undead. Yeah, I think so. And there's another change when peasant HP increased from 220 to 230, and increasing their health slightly should help players manage the early game harassment. Honestly, I think that's a really good change. That should actually be mostly about the undead harass, and probably orc is harassing as well early game. I don't really know much about human versus orc, but you see a lot of farseer harassment. So, and yeah, obviously from the undead with the decay and skeleton, so that's a really good change. And I think that's a good direction, and we'll see how this will work out. So yeah, let's see another one. Mountain King damage reduced from 60 and 115, 160, 60, 110, and 150. So they basically only reduce the damage on level 2 by 5 and level 3 by 10. Well, that's a really minor change to the clap. I know there was a discussion about the damage cap, but I think that honestly they could like leave the damage it had but reduce the AoE. I was talking the same about the stomp from the TC. It's like you either nerf the damage and the stun duration, or and leave it on the cooldown as it was, or you just increase the mana cost of it and the cooldown, but leave the damage and the AoE. So I was always talking about like high risk, high reward for the spells. And yeah, the issue with Stomp or Clap is it kind of has like a huge AoE. So maybe going into the direction of reducing the AoE but keeping the stats it had would be a good direction as well. But I know this change is a really slight change. I would honestly actually leave the damage as it was and just reduce the AoE damage, because it feels really like huge, right? Even not only the units that surround the MK, but like units that stay like 1 square near them or even 2 squares take the damage as well. So it has like a really huge AoE. So I think like reducing the AoE would be good, and it would kind of make the unit cap itself, because there's like some amount of the units that can only fit into this AoE circle, right? So that would be a good change, honestly. I don't think that reducing the damage is really that necessary, so I would probably myself personally reduce the AoE and keep the damage as it was. We have Rifleman attack delay reduced from 1.4 to 1.35, and we have developer's note. With the additional change to human, we felt that this previous change needed to be reverted. Well, so they further buff Rifleman play. I know, I feel like the one base strategy against undead from human with rifles is pretty strong if undead is behind in creeping. it's not really that easy to play against one base rifleman. And now when rifles gonna be buffed, it also opens a possibility for human to play like mass tier 2 rifles after they expand. So, and it can create a timing push to which Undead not be ready to defend. So I don't know if that's a good change, honestly. We'll see how this works out. And honestly, I don't know what's the math behind it, how much it increases the DPS overall over some time in the fight, right? We've got another one. Spellbreaker armor reduced from 3 to 2. The goal here is to try to get away from mass spellbreakers in human mirror. Well, I guess it's all about the spells, right? So I don't know, like against undead, spellbreakers are only there to counterplay the banshee. Because a lot of undead, even when they play one base, they tend to go banshees, and you want to have something that counters curse, so your entire army is not cursed. So, but in the human mirror, I don't know. I saw opinions that it won't change anything, so the people will still play just mass spell breakers. So I don't know. Was there the direction to change something about that matchup? I think like probably doing something with the tech tree of human and maybe doing a tier 3 tech cheaper can change the meta, but like reducing the unit stats, I don't know, you can basically make a unit useless by that in other matchups, so we'll see. Sorcerer's slow movement speed reduced from 60% to 55%. Developers knows a slight movement speed reduction to slow. This is to improve the orc versus human matchup and to slightly improve the human versus night elf matchup. Compensate for the lack of dispel. That's a good change. I think that it was a little bit too strong, this 60%. I think they could even make it 50%, honestly. That's huge already. I think that the cripple, when they reworked the necromancers, the cripple had like, what, 30% slow? I don't remember, honestly, right now. But yeah, still 55 is pretty high, but yeah, I guess like nerfing this is well, that was kind of an issue, even in other matchups, even against Undead sometimes. Like this though is just pretty strong, and it's just from tier 2, when most races don't really have this pull. Siege engine tank experience bounty increase from 60 to 85. Developers note recent changes to Undead repair rate could potentially increase the viability of siege engines, so we are increasing the experience bounty, which we feel is too low. Well, I don't think that's the direction they should take to nerf the tanks. Honestly, my problem with the tank is not how much experience you gain with it, but the what is the fortified armor they have. And the problem is that you can actually upgrade this armor to a higher number when tanks just become really tanky. So I think that siege tanks should have like a flat fortified armor that you cannot touch. It's like you've got meat wagons, right? And the armor upgrades you make don't influence this unit. They just have a flat whatever, like 2 heavy armor, right? So this should be as well with the siege tanks. Like fortified armor is already a type of armor that decreases the damage from magic, from everything basically, than siege. So they already take reduced damage, and you can further even increase that armor by upgrades. So I think that should be the direction to nerf siege tanks. So they can destroy buildings fast. They don't give a lot of experience, but they can actually be destroyed with the units you have like in a decent time. Because if you have like a 0-3 tank coming, it takes everything to destroy that tank. So, and this can actually, and increasing experience, if someone will go to the tanks and an opponent will be kind of ready or will manage to stabilize, they will have their heroes really feed it with the experience. So this can be this could backfire actually. So I don't think that's a good change. I think that the problem with tanks is their armor, that the fortified that you can upgrade it. That's the main problem. Let's see on the orc changes. Great Hall supply granted increase from 10 to 11. Developers know this should help provide an early scouting option in Orc versus Night Elf matchup. I guess that this is a good change overall. in every matchup, right? So scouting is a really important thing in the game if you talk about any race, and it felt like Orc is lacking this option in a lot of matchups, and they had to play kind of blindly unless they go Farseer and they scout with the wolves. So this is a good change, I like it. I also heard that it gives some options with like two borrow play. I think they used to have like 26 supply to 30, so they were like missing one to make a hero, and now they won't have to make a third borrow to make actually a hero. I think that's a good change. Blade Mirror Image mana cost decreased from 100 to 80. We are starting to see emerging gameplay from Orc players using Mirror Image with Lightning Shield, which is super exciting, entertaining, and fits their faction theme. However, we noticed the main deterrent, sorry for my English guys, of this strategy is Mirror Image high mana cost. In addition to the Wisp detonation change, we believe this should further promote the use of this skill. Honestly, I will commentate the overall thing about the skills and usefulness of the skills later on. When you go to the end of it, I have like a lot to talk about balancing the skills that are not really used and what should be the approach, in my opinion, the correct approach towards the game. But we'll go talk about it later. Towering Chieftain Wardstorm, stun duration against heroes reduced from 2.34 to 2.5 and 3 seconds, and Shockwave mana cost reduced from 100 to 90. Wardstorm is an extremely powerful skill that performs quite well against enemy forces. However, its hero stunlock potential needs to be reined in slightly, while reducing Shockwave's mana cost to 90 could make it a available alternative. Honestly, I think that's kind of a good decision to nerf it. As I said, there should be like two directions. I think that you either leave the stun as it was, but increase the mana and cooldown, so it's a spell that costs a lot of mana. Like, look on Impale. Like, Impale costs 100 mana, right? Crippler doesn't have a lot of mana. He can use a maximum of 2 Impales unless you buff his mana pool, right? So it's like 3 Impales. And Impale is a pretty strong spell, but it's expensive, right? And Warstomp is a pretty strong spell, but it's not expensive compared to Impale. So I guess you could leave the stats, the stats of the stomp, like the stun duration, the damage, the AoE, but increase the mana. So TC can only use the stomp twice, for example. So it's like a spell that costs a lot, but gives you a lot of value if you do it right, and don't just spam all the time, right? Because it's just 90 mana. You can use like 3 stomps on level 1, and you buy a mana potion, you use 2 more. So it's just like really abusive spell. Or if you want to, and also towards leaving the stats, if you increase the mana, like reduce the AoE, right? So it's a spell that does a lot, but you need to really play around, you know, like getting a full potential out of this spell. And if you don't want to do this, then reduce the stun duration as they did, and that's it, right? So also what's kind of what was also the great synergy that Orc has, especially against Undead, with the triple hero of like Blade Master, Shadowhunter, and TC, is the lockdown potential. So they not only can ensnare you, but then they can stun you for like 2 to 3 seconds, and even further this lockdown with the Hex. And there's no counterplay to it, right? You can dispel the Hex if you have a Destroyer. But if, for example, there's a hit of the battle, you get Hex and then you get stomped, like you are basically disabled for 5 to 6 seconds, and there's no counterplay to it. You just take a lot of damage. And with some luck, you just die if the critical strikes hit. So at least in the Orc against Undead, that's a big nerf. Obviously I like it, right? But I feel like they're nerfing from both directions the stomp. Like, as I said, there should be like some direction. You either like leave the stats but increase the mana cost and cooldown, or you do the other way around, right? So I don't know. That's my thoughts on the spell. Like, those direction could be kind of too much for the Stomp. Like, it still will be played, right? It's an extremely strong spell, but I don't know. Some of my thoughts about it. Okay, now the important ones for me, obviously. Undead. Spirit Tower, Nerubian Tower. Repair rate increased from 35 to 45. The repair rate measures how long it takes for a building to be repaired. So the higher the number is, the longer it takes. Recent changes have allowed Undead to expand more easily, so we feel that the repair rate of their towers should be brought in the line with the other races. 45 is 5 less than an Orc Burrow, and taking in consideration that there will usually only be a maximum of 5 acolytes repairing it, we feel this makes the most sense. Well, okay, I think that's fair. They already buffed Ziggurats, right? They increased the armor or the HP, so it's not being one-shotted by the sappers. They also buffed acolytes, so we will see how this works. Right now, it kinda even in Mirror when one Undead fast expanded, it felt like Ziggurat is being repaired pretty fast, and it takes a lot of damage. You had to target acolytes, so we'll see. But I don't know if that's a good suggestion. But if nah, it's not a good suggestion. I felt like maybe if you decrease, then like acolytes need to repair that they're vulnerable. Like you can only have like 5 acolytes. They're really important, so maybe like slightly buff them, like maybe 1 armor or whatever. But nah. I don't know. It's like too risky. So we'll see how this works out. We will just see. Definite Unholy Aura movement speed changed from 10, 20, 30 to 10, 70.5, 25. We have noticed that once the Death Knight reaches Unholy Aura level 2, they are able to take fights they wouldn't normally be able to do due to their increased mobility and kiting potential. Well, really? I mean, do you guys know how hard it is to kite? I mean, you just say like, yeah, we will decrease kiting potential, like no problem with one head. No, it's just extremely hard to kite with entire army, especially because of some collisions and how the game works. So it's really hard to manage your entire army. Plus, you need to remember that a lot of races, they have lockdown potential. So how do you want to kite against, let's say, Stomp? How do you want to kite against Ensnare? How do you want to kite against Entangle? Right? Like, how do you want to kite against? You don't kite. They're forcing fights with some stuff. So, but I understand, like, okay, Aura could be a little too strong. My only suggestion is that if you nerf this, nerf the Endurance Aura as well, so it's equal. Because the last thing I want to see is level 2 Endurance Aura being faster than my level 2 Unholy Aura, and me not being able to kite Orc at all. That's the thing I don't want to see, honestly. And they already have Speed Scroll. So how do you want to kite against Speed Scroll, right? If you don't dispel it. So risky decision, I understand that, but keep in mind the other auras, and I think the Endurance Aura should be nerfed to this point as well. Because it could be problematic against high level TC and kiting this army. Grip Lord level 2 and level 3, Carrion Beetles. Hit points increase from 275, 410 to 300, 440. And movement speed reduced from 290 to 280. Okay, I think that Beetles, yeah, they were kind of too fast. That's good. Borrow ability requires the borrow upgrade. That's a good change as well. Increasing the stats is good if you nerf the movement speed. If you make the borrow, you need to upgrade the borrow to beat, so it's available for Beetles. That's a good change. I still do believe that Criplot will be really strong, or as strong as he was. I don't think the borrow was kind of the problem, but it will still leave the play of the level 1 Criplord will be as strong as always, right? It's not like you nerf a level 1 Criplord expansion potential. Nah, it just kind of changed the dynamic of him reaching level 3. But as you can see in the games, most of the fights when Criplord reached level 3, the only kind of OP thing about the borrow was the scouting possibilities, right? So you just send a beetle and you borrow somewhere. That was pretty strong. But overall, in the fights, we didn't really use it that much. So it was all about rounds, having more numbers, creeping efficiently, and increasing their stats. It will increase efficiency of creeping, you know, like beetles will tank more. So I guess Creeplord could take more risks creeping with level 3. So maybe, so the dynamic can change, but Creeplord will still stay really strong. And with the next changes of the Road of Necromancy, I think like Criplord will be even more played in Mirror match than now. And I will go to this in a moment. So let's see. Current Beetle level 2 collision size increased from 60 to 32. Honestly, I have to see how this works. So it's hard for me to say how it feels in the game. I haven't tried it, so it's hard for me to say. I need to check it out. So I will probably talk about it when I will play a couple of games, and I will talk about it on my stream. Yeah, Destroyer cast point time decreased from 0.83 to 0.66. That's a good change. This change is to improve the usability of Destroyer when casting Devour magic. That's a cool change. I mean, like, it was still kind of a skilled play because when you were trying to dispel something with the Destroyer, you had to kind of predict, you know, like, or cast it a little bit further than your opponent. And from the other side, it was still like skillful to see a Destroyer going for the dispel, and you could still like be able to dodge it, right? So it will kind of kill this mechanic, but I still need to play games and see how it works. If it's like instantly dispel or whatever, you know, or if it's still like some kind of delay you can feel. So we'll see how it goes, but I guess like buffing this kind of kills some of the cool stuff you can see, like when someone dodges, you know, the dispel or you know, something like some place like that. So we'll see. Gargoyle now has a new toggle ability prioritize, which will allow the Gargoyle to prioritize flying units over ground units. Developer notes this was requested by the community to improve the usability of this unit. When the ability is turned on, the Gargoyle will prioritize area units over ground units, but will still attack ground units if the player force attacks them. That's a good change. I think that's obviously a change directly for like gargoyles fighting what hippogriffs, gargoyles against gargoyles, and gargoyles against gyrocopters. But okay, now you can see more and more gargoyles against gyrocopters. But yeah, if you had like a mirror match and it was like gargoyle against gargoyle, or like against Untitled Gargoyle against hippogriff, it was some people said like, yeah, it's a skill to micro gargoyles in the fight. Trust me, guys, it's extremely clumsy and hard to target a unit and then like spam with the shift, you know, like click 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 everything, just to not have that too many delays during the attacks. And that was kind of like clumsy microing. So having it, and just to tell you guys, like Night Elf with Hypogriffs, he just A moves and doesn't care. That's his entire micro with the army. Compared to me, not only managing my heroes, statues, ghouls, nukes, I still need to like shift click everything with Gargoyle, so that's a good thing. And same goes to the Undead Mirror if you have like Gargoyle against Gargoyle, it was really clumsy. And against the Gyrocopters, yeah, well, that was like not likely scenario, but still really useful. So I like this change. Like microing with Gargoyles, it was really skillful, but it was really hard and really clumsy. Those fights, like especially Gargoyle against Gargoyle, like you could even click like not see and click your own unit. Like it was really hard to micro this with the targeting and stuff. Like trust me, guys, that's a good change. So don't complain. That's a good change. That's a really healthy change. You still need to micro your Gargoyles, right? So it's not like, I mean, okay, let's see that more. Necromancer's Unholy Frenzy HP drain reduced from 3 to 2 HP. Whatever. They're useless. Whatever. I mean, the unit needs to be reworked. I honestly, first, when the reworked Necromancer came, I didn't like it, but then it kinda came to me and I really loved it. You know, like I felt like, oh my god, like this is good. Like the cripple level 1 is good. I didn't like how the Unholy Frenzy worked. I actually thought that how they did the spell with the AoE and stuff, it was like kind of weird that you had to sacrifice your unit as well. I really do think that Necromancer needs a rework. Like this buffing the spells for the Necromancer is not gonna make it. Especially, I really love the cripple spell as well. And the bad thing is that it's really strong on level 3. I mean, like as a level 2 caster, right? Like it's the ultimate spell of necromancer, right? But you can dispel it, and it costs like 25% of entire mana pool of necromancer. I don't know what is it, like 150 or 125. It's a really expensive spell that you can just dispel, and there's nothing, right? So I don't know. I don't get this change. Necromancers are really only used when you play expansion and you want to kind of all in, and you don't really see Unholy Frenzy that much. And there's a huge problem with the wood economy for Undead, because a lot of one base plays, you don't see Undeads playing ghouls. They all usually play with only triple ghoul, and it's kind of hard to make you know, like tier 3 tech, slaughterhouse, the building for the necromancers or banshees, you know, like it takes a lot of wood. It's just like really tight. So I think they should maybe make buildings, at least a building for the castles, a little bit cheaper. Like even 20 would be a healthy amount. I don't know. And the worst changed of them all, like a lot of necromancy cooldown increased from 22 to 26 seconds. And let's see the developers notes. This is a targeted change to help human deal against skeleton harass early game. With the increased cooldown, a lot of necromancy gives the human player a little bit more time to react and breathe for the next set of skeletons. This will also have a small effect on a few solo creeping routes as definite, but we find that acceptable. I don't find that acceptable. This is outrageous change, honestly. I understand that a harass of skeletons is strong against human, but it's not a given. Like, people say like, oh, Undead is so OP against human. Well, it's still a really hard matchup. And you cannot screw up the early game. If you screw up the early game, it's really hard to play against human then. And the buff on the peasants was already enough, in my opinion. And they get the double buff. There will be less skeletons on the harass. But I find a bigger problem with this. And the bigger problem is the efficiency of creeping with the solo decay. Like each race is really efficient early game with creeping. And the only counterplay to it was decay, solo creeping with the skeletons. And now if you're gonna have less skeletons, you're gonna have slower creeping. And this will be really painful to play. The timings will be off. Like if you watch the creep routes on Concealed Hill or Last Refuge, it's really tight. It's like you have like those 1 to 2 seconds when you spawn the skeletons, and you can go for a really brief moment with 6 skeletons to creep something that you would never creep with 4 skeletons, or it would be really inefficient. But it's a play that kind of counterplays what the other races do. Like when Orc solo creeps a camp with just Blade Master and just heals with the Salve and runs away. Well, you cannot creep something with solo decay. So the timings will be off as well. I know. For me the biggest problem is that, okay, human harass, they increase the peasant HP, which is great. It will make harassing harder, but why, you know, like increase the cooldown? It just hits all other matchups for the Undead. And even now, look at this. Already playing a solo DK against Cliplord is really hard. People say that it's impossible to win with solo DK against Cliplord fast expansion. And now, when you can even have less skeletons, how the hell are you gonna stop the expansion? Like, you even gonna, in my opinion, you're gonna see even more Cliplord against Cliplord. We'll see, that's my opinion, we'll see how this works, but I don't like this change. I don't like this change at all. I think that giving 10 HP for peasants was good, was enough, and this was not something I would call for. And already remember, guys, like creeping with skeletons, it takes some skill. You need to change aggro, you need to position your skeletons. It's not like you just A-click a creep and just creep it for free because you have skeletons, right? It still takes some skill. Look at Happy. Like, he's changing the aggro and he's creeping a creep with like 4 skeletons on red HP. Unlike a 1 healthy skeleton taking damage, and now he won't have those 2 skeletons to creep something. You just decrease the efficiency of Undead. That's an outrageous change, in my opinion. For now, for me, it's outrageous. Maybe it won't affect that much, but in my opinion, it will. So if it, for me personally, if it was already hard to stop Criplord expansion, now it will be even harder to stop it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't like this change at all. Let's go to the Night Elf. Wisp mana drained or on detonate reduced from 50 to 40. The detonate has become too powerful, especially against Orc, due to their lack of mana regeneration option for their caster. Okay, I think that they could even make it more. Like, you know, I was thinking like, okay, it was necessary to nerf this. I think that Night Elf started to abuse it too hard. It was even annoying to play with Undead against, for example, Keeper and the Mass Air, and for example, you know, the fight starts, there come 4 Wisps, you don't see them, you forget to kill them, boom, you don't have mana on decay, and you cannot heal your fiends. It was so stupid mechanic. So, but again, I would go to kind of different. If I would maybe like leave the 50 mana drain and detonate, and you know, like I would and detonate on the summons. But for example, I would decrease the AoE. That would be a healthy change. Just decrease the AoE. Or if you want to decrease the number of mana drain, then maybe just make a wisp cheaper, like 10 gold cheaper, but make the detonate like 25 mana. But compensate it with being a cheaper unit. Maybe like even decrease the building time of 1 second, so it's like 10 gold cheaper and 1 second faster making it a wisp. So that would be a healthy change. I don't know, we'll see how this works. I think the best way would be to just decrease the AoE. Just leave it on 50 and just decrease the AoE. So again, it's a high value, but a high risk. You need to come close, but if you detonate, you get the full value. So again, high risk, high reward play. And not like this. I don't like this change. After all. Yeah. HP reduced from 260 to 255 on Archer. Okay, good. I would even decrease to 250. Mass Archer is annoying play. It's annoying play against Undead. It's even more annoying play probably against Orc. So yeah, Archers are pretty strong, and they shouldn't be supposed to be as strong. They either deal a lot of damage, or they die fast. They cannot deal a lot of damage and not die fast. So I don't know. It's again like a high DPS but vulnerable unit, right? That you can kill really fast. So we'll see how this works. I think they could even go with 5 more, but that's all a good change, you know. Like they're pretty strong right now against all races. I mean, all races, mostly against Orc, right, and then Undead. So yeah. Druid of the Claw, here Belform, Belfor, base damage increase from 24 to 25. Night Elf has recently been heavily reliant on tier 1 units, so we are hoping to the Wisp Detonate change, along with slightly buffing the damage of Druid of the Claw, could promote more strategic variety. Okay, fine. I don't know why, honestly. I don't want to see Druid of the Claw be too strong. It's already kind of hard to micro against them, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It could be a huge buff for Night Elves. So we'll see how this works out. For now, with 1 damage, I'm maybe okay, but we'll see. Chimera, friendly fire removed. Okay, fine as well. Also, I forgot to talk about Undead, because there are 2 things they didn't change. Frostworm. Guys, like, the biggest problem, in my opinion, is the tech tree for the Frostworm. Like, in order to get a Frostworm, not only you have to go tier 3, right? You need to have Sacrificial Pit with 150 wood, and the building that costs 275 wood. God damn, is it expensive on wood. Come on. Besides, building a Sacrificial Pit is a huge tell. You're gonna go Worms. There's no surprise. And let's be honest, a Worm is a surprise unit. Right? It's really expensive. It's basically as expensive as a new hero. And it takes 7 food supply, so getting to Worms takes a long time, but what's more important, it takes a lot of wood. even when you play with 5 to 6 ghouls. It takes a lot of wood. So there's a tech tree problem with the Frostver. For sure. And cannibalism as well. I mean, remember, people forget that a huge factor for Undead is corpse mechanic, right? You need corpses to use your rod. You need corpses to spawn beetles. You need corpses to use cannibalize, right? So I think that cannibalize, also the problem with it is that it's how to say, I forgot, like you need to stand still, right? And oh, it's a channeling spell. Yeah, that's the word. It's a channeling spell. So the unit does nothing but heals. Like it eats corpses and heal. I would actually do something like you eat a corpse and, for example, heal a percentage, like 50% or 40% of your max HP over like whatever time, 20 to 30 seconds, whatever. That would bring a lot of cool mechanics. And why percentage? Because you remember that Abomination got cannibalized as well, and it has like 1k HP. So you don't want to be cannibalized like 100 HP. So basically, you know, Abomination heals for 10%. So that's like whatever. So yeah, giving like a 50% to 40% overtime heal is a cool mechanic. Plus, it's like you could compare it to like, and you cannot stop it when you attack it. That would be really cool, because if you could compare it actually to something you have in Heroes of the Storm, like when you have this mechanic called pre-tapping. So before a fight starts, you want to increase your regeneration over time. So you use a spell or something just to be able to use the Moonwell. So you have like this HP and mana, you know, over time, and you go into the fight with increased regeneration. So that would be a really cool mechanic that would increase the survivability of the ghoul in the fights, because people complain that ghouls die too fast, right? So if you give them an effect of this cannibalize with heal over time and go into the fight, they would actually survive a little bit more. So that would be a really cool mechanic, but it takes balls to implement this to the game. I need to take a little drink because my throat. Okay, let's see. Pit Lord level 1 Rain of Fire range reduced from 800 to 700. Okay, fine. It was kinda strong against human, but again, talking about this entire matchup, why it's going to be pretty hard if we talk about one base play. Like, there's no counterplay to human expansion besides all-inning. That's why you see this insane push, harass, continuous push with Pit Lord and not the other heroes. You want to push human until you finish him off. Because the moment you fail the push, you can't expand. So, I don't know, like, if you go with the direction of increasing the peasant HP, nerfing the Pit Lord, nerfing the Rod of Necromancy, do something so there is a counterplay expansion. Because it's extremely hard to set up your own expansion while human has his expansion. They can delay you all the time. So, I don't know. Trust me, guys, it's incredibly hard to counter expand against human. And later on the game, they can do like, you know, like send 2 tanks to your expansion and drop into the base, or the other way around. So, you know, there are like so many harass potential. The human has so much harass potential that you don't see undeads at all going for the counter expansion on tier 3 against human who fast expand. You see them pushing to finish them off, and they're not always successful with it. It takes a lot of micro and no mistakes at all. So, I don't know. This matchup, one base will become pretty hard. And humans will already getting pretty good to defend the harass. So, we'll see. And we have items. Helm of Valor, Medallion of Courage, Hood of Cunning, stats increased from 4 to 5. Yeah, well, it's like whatever changed. Clothes of attack plus 6 reduced, replaced with loss of attack plus 5, whatever. It's kind of a nerf to Undead, honestly. Like, Blade Master was not really being stacked that much. It was all about like Leech being stacked, so he, there's like a shotgun Leech, like dealing a lot of damage. So could be kind of a nerf to Leech. So, but I don't know. It's like still, I have a bigger problem with items than those changes. Like plus one there, minus one there is like whatever. Some of retraining costs reduced from 300 to 200. That's a really good change. I think that was way too expensive. They could even make it 150. 200 is still kind of expensive, but that's super useful. Super useful. Damn, I would even make Tome of Retraining available at each of races' shop. Seriously, why neutral shop? Just make it shop in every race. Honestly, that's a super useful item, but not really used that much because it's expensive and you can only buy it in the neutral shop. I would even make it in every race shop. That's super cool change, but even they could even go one step ahead, one step more with this, right? One of the wind charge reduced from 3 to 2. Developers note at 3 charges, one of the wind provided too much crowd control over for a single hero. I more liked giving a cooldown, honestly. Like even to give it a 10 cooldown, 10-second cooldown. That would be probably a better change. Giving a cooldown than reducing the charges. But overall, my problem with the items is that they should really sit down and do the math behind the items, like what stats they give on each level, how much they cost. I think that some camps are imbalanced. Like, for example, on Last Refuge, you can get from the mercenary camp, right? Where you can get like a tier 3 item or tier 4. I don't know. I don't remember if it's like tier 3 or tier 4. But you basically get like plus 6 intelligence, strength, or agility. But what's more important, you can get a devotion aura plus 2 armor. You can get a vampiric aura and true shot aura. And you will never tell me that Medallion of Courage, Helm of Valor plus 5/5 or whatever you do it plus 6/6 is stronger than an item that you get from an easier camp. That is Devotion Aura. I honestly think that they should look at the balance on which item is on what level. Like I think that all the aura items should be on the same level. Like they should be the red camp level, level 5 or level 6, whatever. So whenever you do the red camp, you're kind of guaranteed an aura. And I really don't like the play you have on Concealed Heal when you only have this one red camp that spawns you a strong aura or plus 12. So whoever wins this camp is basically super ahead. And some races do it more efficiently than the others. And there is no counterplay. Like even doing the 2 fountains or 1 fountain dragon doesn't recompensate the item you get from the middle. So there should be some symmetry on the map, or even more. I really love marketplaces. They should be implemented more on the maps. So when you're ahead, and for example, oh my god, my drops were really shitty, I have shitty items, but I'm ahead economically. You can sell the items and buy the ones you need. That's really cool. I would implement more marketplaces. Seriously, look at the balance of the items on what level, what is it. And yeah, I don't really like that you can get some items that are extremely strong really easily. Amazonia, you pull the mercenary camp, kill the level 5 mage, bam, aura, devotion aura. Same thing on Twisted Meadow, you pull with orc the golem, bam, you get like vampiric aura. On level 1, like what the hell, you get a really strong item that's basically late game for the melee units, right? So that's an issue with item balance overall, and this is not the direction that they should be taking. Buffing the stats is not important right now. Right now what's important is looking at the economy of the items. What's the value of the items, on what level what you can get, and how efficient some races can get some items that are really important for the game. This is also a resource in the game, and some items are just too strong and too easy to get for some races, so that's imbalanced. And that's doing the stats is the last thing they should be doing right now. So those Helm of Valor, Medallion of Volcanic, I would remove them all. Just give the helmet, whatever. Because then, imagine being on a spot where you either get a plus 12 clothes or a helmet that gives you +5 all stats. That would be kind of balanced. +12 is really strong, +5 on everything is strong as well, as strong as +12, depending what you need, depending on what hero you want to put it. Both would be as strong, and right now it's not balanced really. So yeah, again, like what item you get on what level. Again, the problem with this. And also, going back to the mirror image, I still do believe that the game it reworks. The game is really exploited a lot. It has old mechanics, you know, like the genre of RTS evolved over the years. Like it's a game from what 2001, 2002, right? MOBAs came out, you know, like MOBAs brought a new idea of what hero could do in the game. It all grew, and some spells don't need a statistical a stats buff or nerf. They just need a rework. Like even look at the Blade Master, you know, Samuro in Heroes of the Storm. Like it has a really cool mirror image mechanic where why don't you make like a mirror image, for example, deal 25% of Blade Master damage, but the illusions take like increased damage, like 200 damage, for example. That would be really useful. Like imagine Blade Master could take some spots with illusion not only tanking, but also dealing damage, right? So that would be a really cool change. Like heroes needs rework. You know, like we've got a new, you know, like the game's evolved. Like we understand that some heroes are tanks, some heroes are supports, some heroes are like DPS, some heroes like summoning heroes, whatever, you know, like a specialist from Heroes of the Storm. You know, like the idea of those heroes, you know, like changed over the years, and I think the game should be reworked based on the knowledge there that's available there, you know, like from the other games. So for sure, a lot of heroes needs basic rework, and I have more even ideas with that, but I don't know how long is the video right now. But yeah, those are my thoughts about the game, about the patch. As you can see, I don't really think that the Rod of Necromancy. I think I have the biggest issue with the Rod of the Necromancy. I think that's outrageous change, but that's for now. I haven't really played much now. I will try it out, but giving my experience, I think the timings will be off and it will be pretty hard to creep early game with the Soul Decay, but we'll see. I hope I covered everything, gave some good thoughts, so leave a comment, share the video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and yes, stay tuned for more, and bye bye everyone.